Today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC. It's the only conservative alternative to AARP. Join today at amac.us/Carter. In today's special episode, we are going to be joined by Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. We will be talking about the House Speaker fight. For those of you who could not see me, I just covered my face. What it was like negotiating with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the important concessions Andy Biggs and others were able to get from the establishment. I think this is very important. This is a really, really explosive episode. It's a one-on-one, and we're going deep into what was happening behind the scenes during that battle on Capitol Hill. I'll also give you the inside scoop on an encounter I had with Border Patrol. It's going to be awesome, folks. Wait till you hear this story. Hey, everyone, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saraacarter.com. That is saraacarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Guys, I always talk about Mike Lindell. I tell you how much I love him, how much I love My Pillow. I'm going to tell you again. Shop the New Year specials now. You guys, we can get Giza Dream Sheets. Listen to this, $29.98. $29.98. Imagine sliding into the most comfortable sheets you'll ever own, guaranteed. It's the world's best cotton. I love Mike. I have them all in my house. My kids have Mike Lindell's beautiful Giza sheets, pillows, towels, slippers, dog beds. I love, love, love My Pillow. Shop the New Year specials at mypillow.com and use promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, to get huge discounts on all My Pillow bedding products, including blankets, pillows, and comforters, and get the Giza Dream Sheets, these bed sheets, for as low as $29.98. And that's while quantities last. Stock up now at mypillow.com and use the promo code Carter for the New Year's specials. mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Before I get to Congressman Andy Biggs, and I know you guys want to hear the whole inside scoop about what happened on Capitol Hill, I'm still like, wow, in amazement of the alpha male, kind of action that took place on Capitol Hill when we all saw, Kevin McCarthy kind of walking up to, my friend Matt Gaetz and then Matt Gaetz, standing back and holding his ground, and everybody kind of just, I think it was fine. I'm not embarrassed. I want to see our politicians do the job we sent them up there to do, right? They are up there to protect our first of all, to protect our nation, to ensure that our tax dollars are being spent wisely, that there's accountability. And yeah, do I want cohesion? Yes. When cohesion is needed, yes, absolutely. But just because we're Republicans or just because they're GOP doesn't mean they all just have to get along and cave in, right? We even saw that on the right, remember, with Cheney? Hello, bye-bye. She had her point. She wanted to do her thing. I totally disagreed with her. Totally. It was wrong. But she has her own mindset. This is America. But what's more important is that there were people trying to fight for us. But before I get to him and I get into all the back detail and the wildness of Washington, D.C., I want to talk to you about my recent trip to the border. And I don't know if you've been on my Twitter account at Sara Carter DC, but I visited the border with Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Senator Britt from Alabama. She's amazing. And Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, who is also amazing. We did this as a kind of a coalition of women who are standing against the horrors of human trafficking in our nation and at our border because of this chaos that is happening at the border. It has gotten so much worse, far more worse than we've ever seen. And in fact, I brought a victim of trafficking to meet with the senators. She was flown in from Mexico, and she came to talk to the senators about her harrowing life journey and her escape from a trafficking organization when she was only 16 years old. But this was a very intense, incredible, I think, visit, one that educated not only the senators, but myself as well. Griff Jenkins did a great report on Rosie for Fox News, and as well as Carla Jacinto, the victim of trafficking. And by the way, Carla Jacinto, for those of you who don't know, you can read her story online. I'm going to have it up on my website as well. But she actually visited Pope Francis 3 times. She has been very outspoken in fighting for other young women and boys and people that have been trafficked, sex trafficked, and exploited. So while I was at the border, my son was actually working with me this time as my assistant. Alex, he's amazing. He did such an incredible job. And while we were there, we were driving down one of the main highways coming out of Big Bend, because I had left actually El Paso and drove the 6.5 hours to all the way to the border to Eagle Pass to meet the senators. So a lot of times I just like to drive, right? You could fly over it, but then you miss out. There's things that we need to see. And the only way to tell the stories is by being there. So we took this long 6.5 hour drive, maybe 7 hours, with everything else that we were making stops, maybe even a little longer than that. And I was telling my son about, look at over there, this whole area of Big Bend, it's like a wide, vast space. And a lot of people are trafficked through these areas, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. We might even see some folks here, that may be illegals coming through, or people that had been guided around. And so what happened was we could see the Border Patrol, some of them off to the side of the roads. But as we were driving, my son, at this point, I had taken over the drive. Yeah, I was driving, and he was sitting on the side. It's a long drive. And he's like, oh, wow, I see some people over off to the side of the road. This was off to the right. He said, I think they're sitting on a rock over there. It looks like there's maybe 3 or 4 of them. And I slowed down because I think if they're out in the desert in this area, weather wasn't too bad, but I'm going to call someone to let the authorities know that they're sitting there because anything can happen. They could die, that they could be criminals. Who knows? You just want to make sure that you ensure the safety of everyone. So I slowed down just to, and kind of start to pull my car back. And apparently there was a Border Patrol vehicle behind the bushes, just I didn't see them. And all of a sudden I see these lights coming up behind me. And I'm like, oh gosh, I thought I was getting a ticket, but I thought I wasn't speeding. I was slowing down. And then I realized it's Border Patrol's pulling me over, and they're look, standing back. They're doing everything I would see when I was with them, like when I was on assignment or I go on an operation and with law enforcement. And I'm like, oh, they think I'm going to pick those guys up. They think I'm one of those vehicles, that's going to transport people it's me. It's Sara Carter. I report on this stuff. I'm not picking up people illegally and driving them. I'm a little nervous. I'm going to have to explain, but it was pretty funny. One of the Border Patrol agents walks up and he looks in, and then he sees my son, and then he looks and he sees me, and he immediately recognized me. And I say, hey, it's Sara Carter. I'm sorry. We saw some folks back there on a rock, just, sitting there. And I kind of slowed down because I was actually going to call you guys and let you know that they were sitting there and that maybe somebody needs to go check it out. And he started to laugh and he said, I am so sorry, ma'am. No worries. Be on your way. I said, don't be sorry. It's your job. So this is the moral of this story is our Border Patrol agents are doing their job. They're doing their job. Unfortunately, the Biden administration is tying their hands, not letting them do the job that they need to do. And that's why we see such low morale. But it gives me comfort every time I'm out there to know that we have these awesome men and women who are federal law enforcement officers. They're doing everything to protect our nation and even pulling me over. So, hey, Border Patrol, check. You guys are awesome. Before we get to Congressman Andy Biggs, I want to tell you about Allegiance Gold. And I'm very, very excited to have them as a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. Gold and silver, and I absolutely believe this, allow you to protect what you have worked so hard for. And they give us back the control that we need and the privacy that we need from the government. Remember what was happening in Canada? Remember when the Canadian government was like literally shutting down people's bank accounts? Remember in the United States when banks were literally throwing out people they thought weren't woke enough or were a part of their banking system? I couldn't even believe this. So how do we protect ourselves? We protect ourselves by buying gold, by buying silver. And listen to this, with Allegiance Gold, you will get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase. Remember that, a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara, S-A-R-A, sent you. That Sara sent you. $5,000. My friends at Allegiance Gold, they can help you protect your IRA, your 401k with physical gold and silver. And you can have it delivered securely right to your door. They will educate you on the benefits of physical gold. Guess why? Because they care and they want to build a long-term relationship with you. Get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you, S-A-R-A. So don't wait. Call or click today. 1-877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A. Or go to protectwithsara.com. That is protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A. Or protectwithsara.com. I've got Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona's 5th District on with me, and I'm so excited to have him on because he's going to give you the inside scoop about what is happening in his office. Congressman Biggs, I've got to tell you, the fact that you called for this investigation and you've urged authorities to investigate the Biden family, including Hunter Biden, I got to think that maybe you know something I don't know. Maybe your office is being bugged. I mean, things are happening now. Like you can't. Well, hey, the whole system's been weaponized. You got to be enemy number one to the White House.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I even called upon Jill Biden, Dr. Jill. I think she might be in on it.
I think First Lady Jill Biden, yes, is quote unquote compromised.
Oh, I agree. I mean, think about this. I mean, it's real easy for her too. Like she puts on that patchwork quilty dress that she wears, and then she gives the president an ice cream cone, and then she's really diverting the funds that are going to the big guy into her own private account somewhere.
What, her like ice cream fund, a slush fund, a slushy fund.
Yeah, she keeps like $5 out of every $100. He gets $5 for a cone, and that's the way it goes.
That's the slushy fund. That's what they do. I'm always trying to figure out, I really think that's what happened to President Trump. Let's just go back for just 1 minute. Back to 2016. Remember, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn was talking about investigating, who's in the executive office with his group, national security. We're gonna look at all the black ops operations, right? The ones that we know Stefan Halper was involved in now, the guy that was at the supposed DOD that was writing reports, but was really a spy for everyone. And that's the slushy fund. We need to know the slushy funds, where they're going. I don't know if you've seen the news out of Canada. I'm just going to throw this out there. But there's some woman in Canada who literally has she's a lawmaker, a slushy fund of $2 billion. $2 billion. They don't even know where it went. A lawmaker. And she's just sitting there and she's being held accountable. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she can't explain where the money went. She supposedly invested it in a company that does not even exist. So if we think we have it bad, I mean, the Canadians, they also have it bad. They have Trudeau and Miss Slushy Fund. I don't even know her name. I should look it up, but I don't even want to give her airtime. Anyway,
Slushy Fund.
Miss Slushy Fund.
Sara,
can hang out with Miss Quilty Dress.
Yeah,
Miss Slushy Fun with Miss Quilty Dress.
Exactly. I mean, so I was talking to some people yesterday, and we're talking about where in the world is government not corrupt anymore? Right. Can you name a place? And I mean, I'm not sure.
The Freedom Caucus is one little place, one little spot in the one little entity.
Yeah, you got the big globe, but we're just a speck. We're like the island of Fiji compared to the globe, I mean,
or a grain of sand on a whole beach.
Yeah.
One of those things. It is worrisome. I mean, it's a serious topic. I mean, we can have fun and we have to joke about these things sometimes. Otherwise, we'll be so depressed, right? We have to kind of.
I might start crying in the middle of this interview. You never know.
I
I'm a
actually
sympathetic
sometimes.
crier. You know that I'm a sympathetic crier. If you were to cry,
too.
If you start crying, then I'm going to cry. But the key is, and I've always told this to my colleagues, if you come in with a hard luck story and you want government funds, I will probably cry with you if you start crying. But
right.
But the difference is, I'll say, I'm sorry, that's not the role of government to pitch in right here.
Smart.
You gotta be able to do that.
We can go to a nonprofit. We can get private funding.
Yes.
There are people in churches that want to do this. And by the way, Americans are great. I was talking to folks. I was actually on the border.
Was Miss Quilty dressed down there with the Ice Cream Joe?
I didn't see Miss Quilty dress. I did see Ice Cream Joe. What was Miss Quilty dress there? I didn't see any stories about. She wasn't visiting anyone. Like, I was down in El Paso hanging out in the streets with the Venezuelans who were so brutally honest. The people that were just sitting there out in the open weren't necessarily the ones, other than the few that were being arrested for some like indecent things that were happening out in the car. There was a whole situation happening there.
I don't even want to hear about the car.
Yeah, you don't. Well, the car. I found out through my investigative experience as I was walking around Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and I was trying to figure out like why these guys were being arrested by the cops before Ice Cream Joe came down. Was getting ready to come. I'm like, are they cleaning up the streets? Why are they arresting these Venezuelan guys? Nobody really wanted to say anything to me, and finally, I found some young Venezuelan kids playing some crazy rap music from Venezuela, tatted up. There was some an air of marijuana in their vicinity that I was smelling. And I said, hey guys,
DC or San Francisco.
Yes, I was like, wait a minute, you guys are in the wrong city. You don't even understand. You've got to take a bus trip all the way to San Francisco. You're perfect. And I sat down with them and I was talking to them, trying to be hip, and I was so not hip, and acting like I knew their music, which I didn't. They all started laughing at me, which was okay. And I said, hey, why'd they take those guys into custody right before they were picking up all the trash that they didn't want anybody to see on the news?
Sure.
And the two kids looked and they go, okay, well, they didn't do it. They didn't do it, they said in Spanish. But they were in a car with a girl and the cops thought that they were all, having sex or something, like in public. And I'm like, behind the Catholic Church? Like, can we just not go there? Can we just have some common decency? But on a serious note.
The answer is no.
Yeah. It's just N-O. N-O. No, there is no common decency anymore. They're like, wait, Hunter's doing it. Hunter. Why isn't he being arrested? But on a serious note, they cleaned up the city of El Paso. I did the report on Sean Hannity. I watched what they were doing. They even threw away, city workers were even taking big bulks of brand new clothing that had just been donated. I was talking to the people there and I asked them, how did they process you? And this is a question for you because I know the border is a huge issue for you, state of Arizona, and national security is even a bigger issue. Right. And I said, who processed you and how did you get here to the church? And all of them said to me, oh, nobody processed me. We came through the hole. They call it the hole in the fence there in El Paso. And we just kept walking and everybody told us to come to the Sacred Heart Church, to this church. And they've been laying outside the church for weeks now, some of them for days. There were children 12 years old, little kids 3 years old. And then the church was opening up space in their back building to let people sleep in there at night so that the kids were not out on the street at night, but the kids were all on the street. This is the same day that Joe Biden is visiting and lying to the public about what is going on. Yeah. Congressman, they're not being vetted. They're not being vetted. We don't know who the people are that have come through that border. And we have children sleeping on the streets and children with people that may not even be their parents.
Right. I mean, well, all of those are huge, but I mean, the fact that they're coming through the hole and there's no interdiction whatsoever, because I mean, there's so much I want to ask about the Biden trip, but I mean, you and I both know because we just down on the border a lot. There are these big, massive facilities, and there are places in the border. So if you're in La Jolla and people cross the river there and they come up,
right,
just after they get up the road, there's a sign that says "This way for Border Patrol," and so they go that way for Border Patrol. So at the hole, which I've never seen in my many times down El Paso and Juarez, I've not seen the hole, but I can tell you in Yuma, we know where everybody's coming from. Everybody's coming across, but they're getting processed, and they're out on not just down the street. They're gone, but I mean, there's so many now that they don't have enough to even process the people there. So they're doing city release, street release now,
and that's it.
And Biden spends 4 hours down there so he can check a box office, and Karine Jean-Pierre can come back and say, he's been down to the border. He knows all about it. I just wrote an op-ed this morning that we're going to get placed here because I'm like, how can this be? Because some of my colleagues say, Andy, we shouldn't impeach Mayorkas. We should impeach Biden. I said, Biden doesn't know anything. It's Mayorkas is running the whole thing. Biden has no clue. He thought that what he saw was real.
Do you think there are unelected officials literally running our nation and that Mayorkas is not taking direction from Biden, but from somebody else inside the White House or outside the White House?
Well, it's not Biden. Biden's not giving anybody direction.
So it's an unelected official then. I'm believing an unelected official or a former official, or advisors. So that's not supposed to happen in the United States of America.
Right.
A president is supposed to be responsible for the final say in everything that's brought before his desk. And if he's not competent, then we as the people are not being represented.
No, that's right. Well, but see, here's the biggest flaw in the 25th Amendment, right? So we all, I think if you look at Joe Biden, you say, well, it looks like he's probably got dementia and he's probably incompetent. And that's right. That's not on him. That's on his handlers and his family. Who put him up there. But the problem is once you're in the cabinet, since this gets initiated by the cabinet, they've all got their fiefdoms. They've got budgets, they've got money, they've got power, and they can enact whatever policies they want to. And so there's no way that they're going to give it up and say, well, we're going to
they're not
get rid of Joe Biden and bring in Kamala Harris. And now Speaker McCarthy is the vice president. It's just not going to happen.
Well, unless they feel that the upcoming election, that he's going to be so incompetent that maybe there'll be a medical reason or something to replace him with somebody else. Or unless he makes an announcement and decides, which I don't believe will happen, that he's going to step down and allow someone like Gavin Newsom but I don't think it's terrifying. It is terrifying because we're in a very dangerous situation, which leads me to what happened today with the shutdown of all of the airliners, right?
Right.
And the possibility that this was a cyber attack. That could change now between now and even an hour from now. But there's an ongoing investigation, which I think is necessary. I agree with the Biden administration on this, but it needs to be made public as to whether or not what happened was a cyber attack against our nation. And there's only a year left before we elect a new president. And our adversaries are probably thinking, we don't want another Trump. We don't want Trump. We don't want Governor DeSantis. We don't want anybody in that White House other than what they've got right now, because the Chinese and everybody else are looking at expanding their powers and they don't want to see the U.S. So does that scare you? Yeah.
So
what are you hearing about it?
Yeah. When I think of international relations and the world situation, I said, with Trump, what he did is he had a realist perspective on international relations. A lot of people probably don't know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is he viewed our interest as number one, and we needed to be strong and use our strength. What happened? The world stabilized, right? I mean, North Korea stopped lobbing missiles over Japan. China stopped being bellicose towards Taiwan. You had Southeast Asia kind of quiescence down there. Russia backed off on attacking Ukraine. They were rattling their sabers, but they pulled back. They weren't going to do it. But what happens is when you have a vacuum, and the people that are running the international policy, because it's not Joe Biden, he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, the guy just flat out doesn't know what he's doing. So you got Blinken and those guys. They are institutionalists. They are what I would call neoliberal institutionalists. That is to say, they believe by talking that you can persuade someone to do what you need them to do. And if they don't, then you've got the institutions like the UN, NATO, et cetera, that is going to step in. That doesn't work. We have seen that fail for decades. It just simply doesn't work. What works is if you're the strongest beast on the block, you stand up, and then when you contract, which we've done since Biden's been there, you now have a vacuum. And who's going to fill the vacuum? Bad guys, because Europe is filled with neoliberal institutionalists or Marxists. They just are incompetent on international relations. They're incompetent on domestic relations. I think I just created an international incident there. But anyway,
you might have.
But reality,
I agree with you.
Yeah, but we can't let this go. And so when you see Pete Buttigieg, this is the guy. He runs the Department of Transportation, which is over FAA. And you say, hey, Secretary Pete, looks like we had a problem. All the planes getting shut down. Oh my gosh. You know what he's thinking? This wouldn't happen if we had electric planes. This wouldn't happen if we were all in the Green New Deal.
This wouldn't happen if we just only had planes for government officials. That's what he's thinking.
Yes, exactly.
Because then we would just reduce the carbon emissions and only us, the important people, would be able to get somewhere and do something because we had to.
That's right. The elite.
Right? The elite. Which is why he brings his husband with him on government planes, which is why they vacation that way, which is why we're in the mess we're in. I totally agree with you on this. And I think what frightens me is that we've seen China's plan. China has made it very clear that they are not going to buy into the fact that the United States should be the world leader. They've discussed that with Russia. And they're like, we don't know who made that decision, but guess what? We're going to be changing things up in the geopolitical sphere, and we're going to take control. And that's why if it is a cyber attack, that's why that frightens me, because if they can crack into the FAA, if they can go into and shut down our air control system, if they can, which they can, we know that. Whether this is a cyber attack or not, we know they got those capabilities. But think about what they can do to us in space, which is why President Trump had Space Force. Think about what they can do to us on a level of like an EMP attack or taking down our grid, or God help us, could you imagine if all of our cars were connected to the internet, electric vehicles, and they just shut down our ability to move our vehicles and access our vehicles, and they're spying on people in TikTok. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to me that we're giving up so much power.
Oh, well, yeah. But here's the deal. While our nation as a whole is generically giving up power to the world, the leftist elite are centering power in themselves. That's what they're doing. And so they're abusing the American people and attacking their rights and fundamentally changing this country in every way, in every way. I mean, I was just looking, I was going through a box this morning of papers to get ready for some of the investigation hearings because I was pulling out all this stuff. And I happened across an old Pat Buchanan op-ed that he wrote. And it's called What Still Unites Us. And he goes through, really lays it out pretty well that, what still unites us? We are so absolutely divided. And since he wrote that, because I think it's like 5 or 6 years ago, it has actually gotten worse because because the left has become even more entrenched in the institutions. I mean, if you would have told me this is what I was doing 20 years ago. I was doing pro-family, pro-life stuff at international institutions, and I'd go around the world, and I would come home and I'd tell my wife, I said, if this happens, the U.S. is typically 10 years behind. And I said, but this can't happen. We just can't let this happen. Well, it's happened. It has happened. We have changed it. And then the U.S., because we are independent, have this freedom, and we do so much, we've taken the bizarre debauchery that was there in, let's say, Western Europe 20 years ago when I was doing this stuff, doing these issues, to now we're well beyond them. They think we're nuts. They think we're even nuttier than they are because we've gone beyond them, because that's what happens. The U.S. excels at everything.
Right. And in excelling in a really bad direction, which leads me to what we were joking around in the beginning, but it's not a joke. I mean, there really needs to be an investigation. And now that the House has control, the GOP has control of the House, what do you think the reality is going to be of having in-depth investigations into what was going on with the Biden family? Because what's terrifying to me is that we know now FBI shut down basically any ability for any American to get the truth through Twitter, through social media. They basically did the same thing, censoring the New York Post and all the great stories that Miranda Devine was writing, because she's brilliant. And, she was putting all of this out there. Yeah, she did great work because she just was very thorough, and she didn't just, take the laptop. She made sure everything was checked, triple checked, and they shut it down. The American people had no idea. And now we know that there's these classified documents. CBS report showed that classified documents were found by Biden's lawyers at his former office at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C. But they're trying to take former President Trump, Donald Trump, down for something that should have never, ever been even a crime, or even thought of as a crime. He's the president of the United States and has full authority. If anything, it's I would think it would be much more like a kind of like a slap on the wrist kind of a thing, like what they did with Obama and others. But now we find this out, and it's like a double standard. It's like a real Marxist action. Like, oh, well, we could do it because we trust, like Joy Behar, we trust Biden because he's one of us. But you can't. That's right.
I mean, and this, so I mean, it's so insidious. Think about this: $54 million goes to the University of Pennsylvania. A lot of that's going to this to support this. I received a report today. I'm trying to verify it, on how much a month they were spending, and they weren't getting ready to move out, that they have a long-term lease there, and they did not have adequate security. And besides, they say they found it in November sometime, and we were just cleaning stuff out. We don't know when they found it. We really don't know. We don't know if they suppressed it. We know they didn't suppress Trump. So last August, you've got how many dozens? 3-4 dozen agents show up at Mar-a-Lago. They're going through the first lady's cabinets and drawers and everything like that.
Even the son, even Barron's room. I mean, exactly. Fourth Amendment out the window. Fourth Amendment out the window, really, because this is a president of the United States, and they were cooperating with the FBI. And whatever anyone says, that there's a fine line between how our agencies are supposed to act publicly and how they're supposed to treat a citizen of these United States, and especially a president. So let's go back to what you just said, because you're looking for some more evidence to see what was going on with Penn and how this was unfolding and where these documents were. Is Congress going to be FOIAing text messages, emails between officials there, all of that? Because that's where we found a lot of the evidence, I believe, against the FBI and everybody else in the Russia hoax.
So here's what I think, Sarah. I don't want to give away all the strategy, but I would say it goes like this. This administration has been incredibly reticent, and I'm talking during Trump's time too. These agencies view themselves as separate, detached governments, and they don't want to give us stuff. So they've dragged their feet. They haven't given us stuff. When they have given stuff is when, like Tom Fitton's group, when Tom goes in, they do a
Love
FOIA.
them.
They
Judicial Watch.
Judicial Watch. They do, and then others like them. They go in and they get this FOIA request. They get the stuff faster than we do.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But we're going to have to do everything we can to get this stuff. But I will tell you, one of the problems with that omnibus package, $1.7 trillion worth of spending, is they just how do these 18 Republican senators and 9 or 10, whatever it was, Republican members of the House, how do they justify giving all this extra money to build a new headquarters for the FBI and give them more money, more raises, when they are using it and they have weaponized themselves against Republicans and conservatives? And now, so when we go into to bring them in, that they're not. Why would they be incentivized to even respond? They're just going to say,
they won't.
They're not. They're totally disincentivized now.
Yeah, this is what I completely agree with you. This is why I believe it's like unchecked power, right? Is this the conflict? Congressman, because we have a bureaucracy that's literally running separate, like a separate machine from the American people. Yeah,
so some political scientists have called it the fourth branch, that it's the fourth branch of government. But it isn't a fourth branch of government. It is a completely separate tree. It's not, it's growing over there. The bureaucracy grows like Topsy. And what kills me and what, just hurts is that we as Congress continue to fund them. We give them money and we give them rulemaking authority. Give them rulemaking authority.
Why are they doing it? Why are they doing it?
Because
are they getting? They owe someone something. There's a payola in the background. There's somebody who, But you rub my back, I'll rub yours. Well,
yeah,
or as Biden would say, sniff your hair, I'll sniff yours. I don't know.
You had to go there. You had to go there.
I had to.
So, but when you think about it, it's over there. We give them all this money. We pass a statute, and then we give them rulemaking authority. And then we say, with the rulemaking authority, you can enforce it. That is the classic definition of tyranny. They're effectively, with rulemaking authority, they're making the law, they're enforcing the law, and they're punishing people. All of that, and you say, I find myself saying, someone told me, well, some of this stuff is a crime. How did they get authority to make a crime, a federal crime? We've got to take that back. We've got to stop this because.
But how do we do it, Congressman? Because you have stood up, and I'm going to bring it up. I saw, you were holding firm. I was so proud of all of you, what you did, showing that there is power still in the House, right? Okay, I know I'm not going to bring it. You don't have to comment. I can see it in your eyes right now for all of you who are not watching YouTube. But, here's, Kevin McCarthy, and I know him. And yes, it's fine. I like him. I hope that he does his job and holds people accountable. I hope. But, for the first time in a long time, a group of congressional members said, wait a minute, not so fast. Let's negotiate this. Before you take over, we've got some things we want you to do. We want you to look at. I thought that was perfectly reasonable, in my opinion.
I like your opinion.
Thank you. So why is it such a big deal? Why did Mike Rogers have to get down and... Well, by the way, that was really fun. Watching Mike Rogers with the guy behind him with the hand on his face. I thought that was awesome. It was like a bulldog, right? Or muzzling. They were muzzling him. I don't know. But okay, you're not going to say anything here. But that was just kind of a fun, wow, America, we're still feisty enough that we care.
Yeah.
Moment.
So people, I actually was told in November when I ran against Kevin, in the conference. So I had people come and tell me, Andy, you're going to destroy the majority. You're going to destroy the party. You're going to destroy the institution. You're going to destroy the country. And I just said, well, thank you, But my thought was this. My thought was always this.
Wow.
It's always real simple.
You're so powerful.
Well, yeah, man, I had no idea, but my thought was, do you mean to tell me that the Republican Party, the United States Constitution, and the United States and Congress, and the United States of America can't withstand a debate that's vigorous, passionate, and hopefully reasoned about who should be the third in line, the most powerful government official in the country? We can't have that, because if we have it, the world disintegrates. And
apparently you were the most powerful without ever having to be there, because you were going to be the end of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go back to tell myself, the sun's coming up tomorrow. We know the sun's coming up tomorrow.
Right.
I will be in the United States of America. Unless they throw me out, I'll still be in Congress. The Republican Party, we agree on 95, 97% of stuff here. My thought was just, how in the world can you say these things? How can we can't give it up? But it gets back to your point. It was so unusual,
right,
to see people actually stand up and fight for
in more than 100 years, right? I mean, it's been more than. I mean, why? Why more than 100 years? Why is it so easy? I used to go to I remember when I was a reporter at the Washington Times, and this was a long time ago, actually, I can say it. I remember being up there with Duncan Hunter Sr., he was at the House Armed Services Committee, the chairman, and I sat up there with him one night talking to him about stories, and we were all, I was going to Afghanistan, and I remember another congressional member coming up and saying, well, you really are making a big stink and a big problem for me when it comes to, I won't even talk about it publicly, but when it came to a certain type of policy.
Yeah.
And I remember, then Congressman Hunter saying, you know what? That's what America's about. I'm representing my constituents.
Exactly.
I'm not just going to cave in because you want, some trade deal with somebody overseas. That's not my place. My place is to represent my constituents. I had a lot of respect for him, and I still do, because I thought he was a good man. Where is that now? I mean, I know you guys are there doing it, but is it just become too much of a, I don't know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, you have to vote for this, Mitch McConnell's going to be in control of the, everything that goes on. He's like, what is he, the great and powerful Oz? I know he probably hates me now. I am the great and powerful Oz. I mean, it is kind of scary.
I am Oz.
Yeah, exactly.
Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. You would say it much slower. Yes, exactly.
He'd get it out by the time we were done.
You know what? We're just gonna be fired by the God of America. Whatever the Oz is, whoever Oz is, like the great and powerful Oz, that's the one that's gonna come out.
Pay no attention to the man behind the screen.
Okay, I have a friend in the intelligence community that said to me one time, I said, wow, it's so amazing. You think of James Bond, you think of all these movies. They go, yeah, you know what, Sarah? It's like, and I'm going to say, it's like a little small person at a circus act riding around on a scooter. That is the great and powerful Oz, just laughing and cackling at all of us. Now I'm going to get in really big trouble. But it is, it's like, it's like a kid riding around on a scooter, laughing and cackling. And, I'm imagining something so great. But I think it's far worse than that. It's about power and money and budgets and more power. And the American people are just on the sidelines going, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here?
Well, I agree. I think I'm with you. I think most Americans, they want to trust their government, and they don't. They want to live quiet, happy, peaceful, productive lives. Go on vacation, plan for retirement, play with the kids, coach softball, whatever it is. Go hang out with their friends on the weekend, have a barbecue. They want to live a life that's fulfilling to them, where they can fulfill who they are. And we continue to allow government to pile on. Now, I'm a big believer. So I'll just tell you my application of an economic theory. Okay, my staff always says I need to not say this, but here's the economic theory. It's by Kenneth Arrow. He won a Nobel Prize for this. Increasing returns, and what it is why do decision makers? He's using it for economic decision makers. I use it for social policy makers. Why do policy makers make decisions and stay on a bad path? So they get going down this path and it's bad. Well, and not only do they get going down, but they start building up regimes, rules, institutions, buildings along the path that makes it really hard to exit the path. And then when it comes time to exit, which is what we did, what I was trying to do last week, I was trying to get us to exit the path where you were centralizing power in the House of Representatives. That's a suboptimal path. It doesn't let me to represent my constituents. We're trying to open it up for everybody. I don't care, Republican, Democrat, Freedom Caucus, big group, open it up. So going down is going to have immediate short-term pain, discomfort, not really pain. But now we're on a suboptimal path. So everybody came together. We passed new rules. We've got a better chance. And I want Kevin to be really successful. I really do. Right. Because we've given him these tools now, and we have tools now to actually make a difference if we will. And that's what I call an optimal path. But most of the time, decision makers, they get locked in and they won't exit the path. And you got to.
Or they're never held accountable for the promises that they originally made. Because once they get on that path, they're like, well, I'm not going to shake it up because I want to retain my power. I want to retain where I'm at and be able to do what I need to do. And I'm just going to. And then a lot of people just support it because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be held accountable later. And I got to say, I was so disappointed when Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who I know he served our country. He's a good guy. I've talked to him before, but then he turned around and called you all terrorists. I was like, what? I'm like, wait a minute. You were overseas like my husband was overseas. A patriot like Andy Biggs or even Matt Gaetz or Lowen Borbart or anybody, they're not terrorists. They're Americans who are standing up. This used to be a vigorous place of debate. Go back in history. I mean, I know you're a historian too. You look at our founding fathers, they weren't just like laying it all out like, oh, okay, George wanted that, so we're all just going to sit back and accept it. Or, Thomas Jefferson decided this, so nobody rocked Thomas Jefferson's boat. Or what about, right? I mean,
no, so
Benjamin Franklin likes to fly kites. We're just going to all grab a kite tomorrow.
Yeah. So I just took a lot of that as just emotion. And I don't know what drove the emotion other than we made people feel uncomfortable. And by the way, this place is risk averse. Everybody here is risk averse, and nobody wants to feel uncomfortable. And that's everywhere you go. Decision makers don't want to feel uncomfortable. That's why they stay locked in, right? So I just let it go because I'm going to have to work with these guys.
Right.
And I.
So you can move forward. What you're saying is like everybody else has to kind of put their emotions aside and work together.
Yeah. Clean slate. We're going to go forward and we're going to hopefully put pedal to metal. But in the meantime, we have to live with past decisions. Okay. I mean, it's like I'm a big believer in agency, right? You can make your choices, but you have to understand there are natural consequences to every choice you make. Some are positive, some are negative, some you can't control, some you can control. But in this instance, we have to live with the fact that we've lost our leverage because the omnibus bill came in and took away our budget process for a year. And then when you come back after that, and you know this, Sarah.
Right.
When we come back in next fall, everybody's gonna be, oh, Andy, we got to pass this big old spending budget because why? Because we're at the start of the presidential campaign season for 2024, so we can't do anything like that.
We can't shut down.
Yeah,
we can't shut it down.
Yeah. So what we're going to have to do is the best we possibly can, and you have to lay the foundation But you can't be just viewed as being performance art by American people. The Republican base can't look at it and say, oh yeah, well, that's kind of like Obamacare. They repealed it 60 times, and then when they finally could repeal it, didn't happen. So
exactly.
You have to build trust, and I think we were trying to build trust with the base. Now, I will tell you, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I should have told you off air.
I want to hear.
Kind of funny.
Oh, this is on here. This is so good.
I was so busy, and I was getting inundated with calls and text message. I didn't even get to see them all. So I actually picked up a couple of voicemails yesterday, finally being able to catch back up. They finally came in. I'm not even sure they were even there, but it's hard for me to check I rarely check my voicemail anyway. So I checked them, and these are big donors, and they're like, and they're calling early on in this process. They're telling me what, basically they're irate. They are irate, and I'm thinking, what? Why are you irate? I wrote 5 op-eds. I wrote and published 5 op-eds about this. And we stood up and we talked, and I thought we clearly iterated what the goal and purpose was. Why are you irate? They said, you're making this a clown show. You're embarrassing the Republican Party. And I'm like, if you can't have vigorous debate about the third most powerful office in the land, well, why do you even have a legislative body? Why do you even have Congress? Why do I go out and try to win votes from constituents when I tell them what I'm going to do? I tell them I'm going to go and pursue change any way I can, and we're going to use every tool I can to pursue change because we are on a suboptimal path, and that path actually is leading us off the edge, just at a slower pace than the Democrats are leading us off the edge. That's the reality.
And that's common sense to me. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing that the Democratic Party they're cohesive. They're moving in this direction. Well, yeah, they're moving in the direction of socialism and Marxism. And that's why they're all in lockstep with each other. That's why when the unions get together in Philadelphia and they tell everybody who works in a factory that union represents, or that airline industry or wherever, you got to vote this way. They expect those people that pay the union to vote that way. And that is not America. America is supposed to be a vigorous debate. Our representatives are supposed to represent us. And yes, do we want cohesion? Do we want the Republican Party to do well and pass great, budgets and talk about and protect us? Yeah, we do. But not when they're passing and jumping on board a $1.7 trillion omnibus bill that leaves us hanging, the American people, and nobody accountable. Where's the money going? How is it going to be held accountable, even in Ukraine? Even if we want to stop the Russians, are you going to tell us where it all goes? Because I didn't even see that in Afghanistan until they implemented SIGAR. And guess what? The special investigator there that was in charge of Afghanistan showed how we wasted trillions of dollars, lost lives, brought our men and women back maimed, only to let Joe Biden walk away from Afghanistan and hand it over to the Taliban and say, okay, we're done, and then lose 13 Marines, lose our Bagram Air Base to China, and basically for 20 years. So once again, I think, look, Kevin might not like me right now because I say this, or because I've tweeted out, like I tweeted out at Matt Gaetz, holy shit. Basically, you're kicking ass and taking names right now, because it was kind of fun. It was fun to watch that. But I don't think I care if they like me or not right now. I think that they should respect that everybody has their own opinion and that they need to be held accountable to the American people, period. I don't care.
Yeah. And I will tell you,
I am not going to get the support of McConnell for any office that I want to run for.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Me either, by the way. Me either. But here's the deal.
Not that I'm running. I'm not running.
Here's the deal.
Running for the border.
So many of my colleagues came up to me, and they're like, a lot of them were saying, Andy, what the heck is this about? And I'm like, well, this is it, and this is that. And I would say, I've written 5 op-eds. If you want me, I'll get you 5. I don't want to read your op-eds, they're telling me. I said, okay, fine. Then let's be specific. And I would give them examples, But then I said, in the end, when this is done, and I stood up on the floor and I said this in a floor speech. I said, this looks rough right now, but this is the way it's supposed to be. I love Matt Rosendale. He says, hey, American people, you think that this is what we do on every bill? Are you kidding me? This is the first time since he's been here. And that's the first time since I've been there we've done that. I mean,
right.
You just don't normally have this kind of vigorous debate, and you should. If you're going to spend $1 billion, $100 million, you should be having a vigorous debate because
that's
it ain't
our
our
money. Right.
It's the taxpayers' money. Yeah.
It's our money. It's the work that we do every single day. It's the waitress. It's the the bartender. It's the hairstylist. It's the business owner.
By the way, your bartender. I mean, they gotta. I hope you're a big tipper.
Yes. I'm like, yes. It's like tipping in Vegas. I'm like, get me that extra shot because I need it right now. No, I was saying I was running for the border, but it is our money. And it's what we do as Americans. And that's why I wanted, and I'm going to make this podcast is pretty much going to be me and you just talking because I'm not going to do a big monologue. The reason why is because I really believe that you deserved the opportunity. I mean, people know you, people love you. I know your constituents do. That what you did was important. And when people look back on it, they're going to be ashamed of how they behaved. You and your colleagues did what I would want my congressional members to do. And I know that Chip Roy came in, he made all those, like everybody got those concessions going. You guys held out and said, we're still concerned about this.
Yeah.
But that's what I would expect from a lawmaker that represents me, right? People getting vigorously involved, and Chip does represent me in my district here in Texas. But what you all did was so important because it showed the American people that we are not, we're not going to just buy whatever any leadership says. We're going to put you first and not ourselves. You did not put yourself first, Congressman Biggs. You took a really big risk, but it shows that you are not craving power. You don't sit there and think about yourself 24/7. You think about the people that you represent. And I'm so grateful that you're my friend. And did I make you cry? Because I'm gonna cry right now because I really believe.
Sarah knows I'm a reflexive crier. So if she starts crying, I'm going to cry with her.
Yes, because
I can tell her no, folks. That's the key.
That's right. It's just the allergies. It's just the trees out here. It's like cedar. But really, and that's what it is. And I'm going to give you the last word here. I would love for you, to just, if you were talking to your constituents, and you are, and talking about what was so important about that moment, because I think it's a very important historical moment. More so for you than for Mike Rogers, no, I'm just joking.
I can't even laugh.
Don't even laugh. My dad was from the good state of Alabama, and I'm not saying anything.
I like Mike. I think he's an interesting character.
I know he is. I
do think he's an interesting character. Well, so what I would tell you, Sarah, is first of all, it was important that there be 20 of us. And we actually, right. Victoria Sparks come out. She wasn't part of our group. She became 21, I guess. And then we didn't even know Keith Self. We'd never even talked to Keith. I'd never even met Keith Self. And then he voted with us the first time around. And I'm like, whoa, hey, that blew my mind. So the point is you had to have enough. And even though 14 or so decided, 17, I guess 15, 14, 15, decided that, they'd been satisfied. The point is, you when you are trying to change something and you have no real power, you will have a leveraged moment once in just a great while. And we did. I mean, that was it. And so we had to take it. We had to take the leverage moment. And I think that's what made so many of my colleagues upset, is they felt like that we were trying to hold them hostage. We weren't trying to hold them hostage. We only have a leverage moment once in a while. And this is what one of my big problems with Kevin, and I hope, because he and I have talked about this, I hope that he's going to take leverage points, because we don't get them very often, and we're fighting the Biden administration. So we need to leverage. And as we institute a leverage point, we're not doing it because Joe Blow's going to get on this committee and, you're going to raise money for that. No, we weren't trying to do that. What we were trying to do is say, we're going to divest some power away from the center and make it so we can represent our constituents. We want a more open amendment process. We want a germaneness and a single subject rule, so we can stop these massive bills that come with 4,000 pages, and they say, okay, you got 2 hours to read them. So we want a 72-hour rule. And we wanted them to start doing something on the budget that's real. For 25 years, they haven't done anything real on the budget. And so we wanted something on that. And I mean, these were things that we think, and I actually had, one of my favorite moments was about 2 weeks before this. I was talking to someone who's on the other spectrum. He leads one of the groups on the other spectrum. And I just said, well, I just need to get a feel for you, where you are. And he says, well, I agree with everything you guys are trying to do on the rules. He says, I think that's probably a really good package. And I'm like, well, okay.
Right.
So, but that's what we were trying to get done. We got to transition this place so where it represents the American people again, and not special interests, not lobbyists, and not people who want to be entrenched in this place for whatever reason for millennium, seemingly. We got to fight for that. We got to fight that.
And thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for fighting for us, Congressman Biggs. I look forward to watching you and everyone else that wants to stand up for the American people and the American taxpayer duke it out in Washington this year up in Capitol Hill. And that's just, I think it's an awesome form of our republic that we have representatives going out there, and that we still have people that are willing to put everything on the line to fight for America. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for all you do. You're fantastic.
Well, that's our show for today. I want to thank Congressman Andy Biggs for being so candid, for not being afraid to speak the truth, and for not having these crazy talking points that I sometimes can't stand when it comes to talking politics or talking about things that are important to the American people. It's really important that we hear from the person. It's really important that they speak from their heart, right? That is what is so important. Folks, subscribe to me on YouTube. Go to YouTube, subscribe to my show on YouTube. That way you can see me doing this. Yeah, what am I doing? You don't know unless you're subscribing to YouTube. And follow me on Twitter at Sara Carter DC. That is at Sara Carter DC. And on Instagram at S Carter DC. And on Truth at Sara Carter Official. Listen, God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless all the children in this world that are suffering and that are looking for someone to protect them. And God bless the great state of Texas.